This is a video to review quadratics for the quadratic assessment on GoFormative. The first thing that we're going to start with today is looking at the parts of a quadratic. There are 4 key parts that you want to be familiar with when you take your assessment. I'm going to go and highlight each part a different color. Okay, here are our here are the 3 key parts. So let's look at this green. This is our y-intercept. This isn't a new concept. You should be familiar with the y-intercept. It's where the line crosses the y-axis. Remember that this line right here, this is our y-axis. So wherever that line goes through and crosses the y-axis, that's our y-intercept. The second component, are the 2 red dots here. We have 2 of them. There's one at -4, 0 and one at -20, 0. These are the x-intercepts. You should be familiar with the word zeros, solutions. We've used a lot of different words when it comes to the x-intercepts, but they are the x-intercepts because this is where the line crosses on the x-axis. And then the last component is, the last component here is our vertex. So remember that when we write our vertex, it's HK, so that just means that if you were to write the vertex down on an assessment, you would just copy the numbers as you see them, -12 and -64, and that is your vertex. All right, next we're going to move on and look at the different forms, the different equations that you've learned in this section. The first one is standard form. Standard form is ax squared plus bx plus c. So if I were to just make up an equation, I would say x squared plus 24x plus 80. Okay, this is my pretend equation today. When looking at an equation in standard form, there's really only 2 things that we know from this equation, and that is our c value. And remember that our c value is the y-intercept. Okay, the c value is our y-intercept. The other thing that you need to be familiar with is that when we look here at our equation, you want to always look at and see what the sign is. Is this a positive or negative equation? So for our example that we have here, our x squared is positive. So that's going to indicate the direction of the graph. So the graph that I have up here pictured is this equation. So because this is a positive equation, our graph opens up at the top. If you had an equation that was like -4x squared plus 13x plus 12, again, totally made up, this negative sign here tells us the direction of this graph would be in the opposite, and it would be opening down. All right, the next form is vertex form. Vertex form is written as your x minus h squared plus k. Again, you can identify direction. If there would be a negative sign up front here, that would tell you again that the graph is opening downward. So if you don't have a sign out here, then it's a positive equation, and it should be opening upward. Okay, a couple things to remember about vertex form. When you're placing in vertex form, we're gonna look at the h and the k. So I'm gonna rewrite the vertex from this equation up here. So it was negative 12, negative 64. When I take the vertex from the Desmos graph and I want to write it in this equation, I have to remember to flip the sign of the h value. So in that case, this is going to be our negative 12. So when I put it into the equation, I'm going to flip the signs and it's going to become positive. Okay? The k value stays the same. You don't change the k value. So you're only changing the signs when you put them into the parentheses. That is vertex form. So the two pieces of information that you get from vertex form is obviously you get the vertex and direction of your graph. And remember, direction from the graph comes from something that's going to be up in front here. If you have like a negative sign, again, that's just going to tell you that your graph is opening downward. If there's no sign there, then it's just a positive graph and your graph should be opening upward. The last, excuse me, the last form that we had is factored form. Factored form is written as x minus r1, x minus r2. R1 and R2, these are our x-intercepts. So if I go back to this graph up here, our x-intercepts were negative 20, 0, and negative 4, 0. So when I see that in a graph and I have to write it in factored form, I'm going to, again, change the signs because I'm putting them into the parentheses in the equation, so my signs would be opposite. So again, factored form tells us our x-intercepts. And again, it could also tell us, excuse me, it also will tell us our direction. Okay, so again with direction, if you have a sign out front here, there's a negative here, it's just telling you the direction of your graph. There's nothing there, that means that it's positive. So you learn the x, you can identify the x-intercepts and the directions from that equation. All right, the next thing that I want to review is, actually I don't want to review that because you won't take your test, the paper part, until Monday when you come back. And there's no need to go over how to go from form to form because you don't have to do that on your test today. So if you have any questions, please let me know. And if you can get your assessment done by Monday, that would be awesome. Again, if you have any questions, send me an email.